Welcome, everyone. Looks like we have people still streaming in, which is lovely. Because people come in a certain rhythm, it's like it's like you're in a reception and people are coming in a line. It's like, oh, there's this person, there's this person, there's this person. It's so exciting. Since so many people are coming in right this moment, I'm going to wait a minute to ring the bell to begin our sitting, just for a minute. Okay. I will invite the bell and let it resonate across the world, essentially, and we'll enjoy a few minutes of sitting together. In meditation, there are times in which we might imagine that to meditate is to somehow step back, or go inside, or retreat in some way into a special state of consciousness. Alternately, there are times we, of course, wish to lean into and stretch out to become something different, maybe better, more refined, more wise, more compassionate, to just not be this, and to reach out. And there is a way that maybe we do find ourselves in sitting to be both concave and convex, but not retreating inside, not stretching out so much to get something. But with each breath, to receive the world that's here, including our body in it, to receive the world, and then to meet the world that's offering itself to us. And those two things are not exactly separate. Receiving the world and meeting the world without stepping away, without trying to effect a change. And this is an unusual orientation. But it's the attitude, the spirit of our practice, to stop and to be still so the world can meet us and we can meet it, which is happening anyway. But what do we wake up to when we practice in such a way? To not retreat inside, to not grasp outside, but with each breath, to offer ourselves to the moment and receive the moment. Simply inhaling and exhaling, simply sitting together. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. This is a vast robe. all of us together. And I was thinking about this recently. My sister Kathy was here visiting, and excuse me, she was describing some of her art. She's an artist. She's one of our friends, and she talked about doing collage. And we were looking for a word to describe some of what she does, and I said she often brings together found objects, which and some of you must do too, and collect things. But then I began to realize later that these days, in the strange way that I come forward and teach, it's like I'm bringing together found objects. A little of this, a little of that. It's not exactly like I'm trying to offer something that is in a linear fashion like a curriculum. But it also reminds me of rope. It's like there are these patches that get woven together in a beautiful way. And I think, Ann Lipscomb and Ann Johnson are both here today. I think I saw their names, two of our sewing teachers. And so many of you have sewn with them and with others like John. And you understand what it's like to take things that are apart and bring them together in a way with a lot of attention. So something sacred is the result, something ordinary and sacred. So my offerings these days are just kind of what's moving through me, through these collage of found objects being stitched together, or like the quilts that Robin is putting together these days. And I hope my sharing of these things that are moving through me will bring forward something in you, your deepest questions. It's not that difficult to teach Buddhism, to teach the history of the Buddha, what he and other teachers taught, the concepts, the philosophies, and the practices. It's not that hard to teach Buddhism. It's difficult to teach Zen. Not because it's complicated, but because it's not a thing that can be taught. Most of us are aware of the old classic description of Zen being a special transmission outside the scriptures, not established on words and letters, but directly pointing to the human mind, seeing one's nature and becoming a Buddha. It's a transmission that points directly to experience, not content. And it's part of why I use the koan, which I sent, in the invitation that I sent the other day. It's one that I had read recently, and it wouldn't leave me alone. Those are the ones that you want to stay with when they keep bothering you. So I'll read it again just so you get reminded, and some of you may not have seen it. But here's one translation. And I also chose it because it was a vignette where someone who is described as non-Buddhist is asking the Buddha a question. And this is where we find ourselves, isn't it? The world meets our practice. So a non-Buddhist philosopher said to the Buddha, "I do not ask for words. I do not ask for non-words." And the Buddha just sat there. The philosopher said, admiringly, "The world-honored one with his great mercy has blown away the clouds of my illusion and enabled me to enter the way." And after making bows, he left. Then Ananda, the Buddha's cousin, looked to the Buddha and it's like, what did he realize to admire you so much? And the Buddha says, "A fine horse runs even at the shadow of a whip." So as many of these koans are these stories from our ancestors, they're a little perplexing, but also because there's a beauty and a density and a non-rationality about them. But But the non-Buddhist is asking really a classic question that we all ask. How do we live? How are we supposed to arrive at the truth of what it means to be alive? What is all this? And he puts the Buddha in an interesting situation. He says, I'm not asking for words. I'm also not asking for non-words. So the Buddha sat. Some of you who subscribe to Tricycle are going to be familiar with this beautiful poem by Marie Howe, because it was in this summer's one of the editions. Listen to the way Marie, in a poem called The Maples, points to the same thing that's in this ancient koan. Not a long poem. It's Marie Howe, The Maples. I asked the stand of maples behind the house, how should I live my life? They said, how should I live, I asked, and the leaves seemed to ripple and gleam. A bird called from a branch in its own tongue, and from a branch across the yard, another bird answered. A squirrel scrambled up a trunk, and then the length of the branch. Stand still, I thought. See how long you can bear that. Try to stand still, if only for a few moments. Drinking light. Breathing. I can look out the window here and see two aspens. Some of you know how they... But Marie says, I asked the stand of maples behind the house, how should I live? It's the same question that the non-Buddhist is asking the Buddha, how should I live? And she writes, the maples said, shh, shh. But she stays with it. How should I live, I asked. And the leaves seemed to ripple and gleam, and a bird called from a branch in its own tongue, and from a branch across the yard another bird answered, and the squirrel scrambled up a trunk, and then along the branch. Stand still, I thought, she writes. And then the good question, see how long you can bear that. Sounds like a retreat, right? See how long you can bear that. Try to stand still, if only for a few moments, drinking light, breathing. She's certainly pointing to something that you've heard me talk about, embodied immediacy, presence, not an answer to the question she's asking. The maples say, they don't ask for words, they don't ask for non-words, they ask for presence, the embodied inconceivable, that awakened space. You know, the Buddha didn't just sit there passively and not respond. He wasn't trapped. He didn't go, well, I don't know, words, no words. It was a very active response, full of presence and depth. And you've experienced this, haven't you? There's sometimes when somebody will just be with you and you're hanging out or whatever. But then there are other times when you stop and you actually meet. And nothing is said, and everything is there. You know, Marie is describing standing in the trees in her yard, immersed in and not separate from the aliveness of the moment, the fullness of everything manifesting in and around her. Like I said in the sitting, receiving the world, offering herself to the world, breathing in, breathing out. She's asking the stand of maples, how should I live? And they say, not words, not non-words, But she stays with it. How should I live? And they rippled and they gleamed. They were themselves. They responded to the causes and conditions around them. That was their response, just like the Buddha did. Stand still, I thought, see how long you can bear that. That's our zazen sometimes, isn't it? Try to stand still, if only for a few moments, drinking light, breathing, this embodied immediacy. You know, the koan, the Buddha didn't struggle for an answer. At least he didn't appear to with the way it's written. He's being asked by someone who apparently doesn't know much about the Dharma. It said is a non-Buddhist philosopher. So the Buddha didn't, as a result, launch into some Dharma talk. Oh, it's a non-Buddhist, so let me... And he didn't just go into a description of meditation or sit zazen. He simply and completely and fully sits there. But what is simply sitting? What does that even mean? Drinking light, breathing. And then Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, asked the question, because he's watching this, and says, what in the heck did he realize? They would have him praise you like that. And the Buddha made that odd comment at the end. He's like a fine horse who runs even at the shadow of a whip. And I know the whip image can be a bit triggering for a lot of us, so I don't get caught in that. Although these days, I am sitting quite a bit with the ways the whip has struck. It continues to strike in my life, maybe in yours too. Illness, old age, maybe losing a job, losing a loved one. There's violence all around us. There's many strikes of the whip these days. And so we respond. You know, you go see the doctor, you eat better, you work out, you get another job, you find support, you find refuge from violence if you can. But many of us through practice, well, I think the sensitivity we have, many of us startle even at the shadow of a whip. It's like we're so conditioned by the past, maybe trauma even, that it's hard to find space or freedom. And we fear so many things, and then create protective strategies which become over time automatic habits that we then take for truth. And we get anxious, and we use our precious energy and time to distract ourselves from the shadow of the threat. What are your favorites? Internet, social media, TV, lots and lots of talking like this. And sometimes we fall into despair. Have you felt this? Past karma haunts you? And you think maybe you're not ever going to be free. But freedom is manifesting by everything around you, including just sitting there, just eating breakfast, just taking out the trash, just caring for things, making your bed. And if there is something on your mind, maybe fear about a relationship, about the future, about the health of a loved one, family, money, we can go in circles trying to figure it all out. Or we can stop. Marisa, stand still. I thought, how long can you bear that? Can you stop and meet what's arriving? Try to stand still, only for a few moments, she says. And we can learn to wait and practice patience, remaining connected to those who love us and the life that's around us. You know, there's another story which I didn't put in with the koan, but Dongshan, who's one of our ancestors, Tozan, ryokai in Japanese, there's a famous interaction where a monk said, what's the teaching of a lifetime? And Dongshan replied, just this is it. Just this. And it doesn't seem very illuminating. And yet it's the teaching for a lifetime, because as householders, our lives are busy and on so many different fronts, and we got these decisions to make, and most of the time the answers aren't very clear. These days, I continue by practicing patience, practicing stopping and waiting, listening, just taking care of what's in front of me. Responses come, not necessarily answers, but something. I can remember right toward the end of his life, Ron Kurtz, who developed the combing method, he said, mostly I just wait. But it isn't just hanging out, It's like the Buddha. And as I get older, I've become more aware of how much or how easily I can fill my mind needlessly at times, running after things and trying to anticipate and protect myself and my partner, and trying to answer questions and solve problems. It's kind of the way I've lived my life. But I'm learning more and more that if the problem doesn't have an answer quite naturally and fairly quickly, it's probably not ripe to be answered. Or maybe I'm asking the wrong question. And our practice helps us shift this sort of signal to noise ratio. In practice, we settle, and the noise in the system begins to go down. And so we're attentive to more subtle signals. We can be appreciated and noticed, and maybe come into alignment with our deepest vows, with our most tender aspirations, with our inmost requests that Suzuki Roshi called them. And this is really waking up. And responding to this question, how shall I live? I asked, and the leaves seemed to ripple and gleam. And that's a question you don't answer. That's a question you keep living with. Everything is here. Emptiness or fullness or freedom manifests as perpetual change, taking this form and that form and changing all the time. It's a constant movement. And we sit, and when we do that, we're practicing patience, and I think a willingness where we encounter the edges of faith and trust, a willingness, but mostly patience, so that you can feel the pulse of life around you. I can feel the pulse of life around me and have the willingness and ability to respond as long as I can bear it. I recently saw a movie a couple times, actually. Some of you may have seen The Life of Chuck. And there was a repeated refrain that you could easily lose in the storyline. There's a lot of things that goes on. And there are various characters at different times and under different circumstances say the same thing, mostly quietly, deeply, as both a question and a statement. This line, it's the waiting. It's the waiting. And sometimes it seemed like they were describing a burden, this waiting, but sometimes an opportunity, and sometimes just the way things are as they inevitably unfold is the waiting. And I really have to describe a certain scene only because the ending was like stopped me in my tracks in a way. So you don't have to know the whole story of the movie, and this doesn't give away anything terrible. The main Chuck, this person, the main character in a way, is you see him as an adult. He's an accountant. He's in his nice accounting suit. He has his sturdy shoes on, his briefcase in his hand. And in this scene, he's at a break at a conference. So he's out having a little treat and sitting on a bench. And he gets up to go back and he runs into a busker. Now, I didn't know that word. You know that word? Cassie, of course, because she has musicians, you know. It's like street musicians. In this case, it's an amazing young African-American woman drummer who's set up on the street corner. And she just has this little beat that she's looking for like a groove. She's not really going much yet. And Chuck, this guy's walking, there's people everywhere, a lot of people. And he's walking along, and for some reason, he looks like he's going to walk by, but he stops. And he puts down his briefcase, and he just begins to move a little bit in response to the drumming. Just a little bit. And where she sees him and she responds, and now there's a communication. And much more ensues. You have to see the movie to see this. And it's an unbelievably delightful unfolding. You know, in a movie, one thing that lasts between 5 and 7 minutes is a long time. It's a long sequence where they're doing this. And later, when the drummer and then the dancers, because Chuck has invited a woman to join him at one point, they're sitting and having something to drink, and they're reflecting on this spontaneous, really magical moment that happens. The drummer asked Chuck, "Why did you stop? What made you stop?" And he said, "I don't know." That was like his koan, you know, I don't know. But there was something in the moment, something of the moment that has no words. He didn't say this, but what I took from it, no explanation, called to him to settle into his body, to drop what he was carrying and move with the life that was pulsing around him. That's the essence of practice. You don't know what stops you, but something in the moment that has no words, that you couldn't actually explain, and you settle into your body, and you drop what you're carrying, and begin to move with the life that's pulsing around you. This embodied immediacy, this embodied inconceivable. And as they disperse for the evening, the busker and Chuck and the girl, and they go the way that there's a narrator in the movie that sometimes describes things. It's almost like a little bit of Twilight Zone-ish. And the narrator tells us something in a very calm voice. It's very matter of fact. As he's walking away, he says that Chuck has 9 months to live, but he doesn't know that at this point. The great matter waits. And as he walks away from the scene in the waning evening light, he's still perplexed about why he stopped, why he danced. And as he's walking away, we hear the narrator voiceover say, and this is a quote, I copied this, this is the quote. The narrator says, "Later he will lose his grip on the difference between waking and sleeping, and enter a land of pain so great he will wonder why God made the world. Later he will forget his wife's name. What he will remember occasionally is how he stopped and dropped the briefcase and began to move his hips to the beat of the drums, and he will think, that is why God made the world. Just that." Just this is it. And like the Buddha responding to the question from the non-Buddhist, and like Dongshan responding to the monk who says, "What's the teaching of a lifetime?" Like Marie asking herself to stop, like Chuck did, so something else can arrive. Something that's overwhelmingly full because everything else has fallen away. The non-Buddhist saw that. The character Chuck felt that and stopped and then gave it all he had in the moment. And there's more in the movie. But there's one thing that, one more thing that's easy to miss. And for me, it reminds us of what's possible in the space that's made by the stopping and the waiting and the immediacy and the presence. And that is all throughout, here and there, there's a song that comes back again. And it's Steve Winwood singing, "Gimme some loving, gimme some loving." So I want to end with one more poem that expresses all of this, at least for me. It kind of pulls these pieces together, my collage. And maybe it's because it's so close to home, although it's written for another time. The author of this poem is Mark Doty, D-O-T-Y, an American poet. He's almost exactly my age. He's had many, many awards, which I have not had throughout his time of writing and teaching. And in 1989, Doty's partner, Wally Roberts, tested positive for HIV. And Doty had begun a collection of poems when Roberts, his partner, died in 1994, 5 years later. So this is one of the poems from Atlantis, which is the small collection. It's called Michael's Dream. Curiously, interestingly, Doty was friends with Marie Howe when Marie's brother, John, was dying from AIDS. So they were living this together. So the poem echoes this frightening and difficult time. But I think it echoes also this frightening and difficult time, where it's important to pause and to listen with our bodies to the rhythm of life around us, and to give what love we have to give, and to receive the love around us. And in doing so, continually learn how to simply live with each other, how to hold each other, to release our need to know, and to ask with all earnestness, how are we going to live our life? And discover the fullness and mystery of life as intimacy with each moment, with each situation, with each person, with ourselves. To wonder why we stop, why we decide to dance to a rhythm no one else has the courage to meet or doesn't even hear. And to meet ourselves with all of our beauty and all of our flaws, and without having to sort it all out or fix anything. And mostly without having to know. So this is Atlantis. It's called Michael's Dream, written by Mark Doty. Michael writes to tell me his dream. I was helping Randy out of bed, supporting him on one side, with another friend on the other. And as we stood up, he stepped out of the body I was holding and became a shining body, brilliant light, held in the form I first knew him in. This is what I imagine will happen, the Spirit's release. The first time I read the poem, that's as far as I could go. Michael, when we support our friends, one of us on either side, our arms under the man or woman's arms, what is it we're holding? Vessel, shadow, or hurrying light? All those years I made love to a man without thinking how little his body had to do with me. Now, diminished, he's never been so plainly himself. Remote and unguarded and otherness. I can't know. The first thing about it, I said, you need to drink more water or you're going to turn into an old dry leaf. And he said, maybe I want to be an old dry leaf. In the dream, Randy's leaping into the future and still here. Michael's holding him and releasing him at once. Just as Steve's holding Jerry, although he's already gone. Marie holding John, gone. Maggie holding her John, gone. Carlos and Darren holding another Michael, gone, and I'm holding Wally, who's going. Where isn't the question, but we think it is. We don't even know where the living are. And in this rattled and unraveling here, what is the body? Rain on a window, a clear movement over whose gaze, a husk, leaf, a little boat of paper and wood to mark the speed of a stream. Randy and Jerry, Michael and Wally and John. Lucky, we don't have to know what something is in order to hold it. We don't have to know in order to hold it. So I don't know if that resonates with you or not, but he was very, very powerful to me, of course. And I'll put the reference to these poems for Cassie to add. But if the collage, like a piece of art, calls something forward, or if wearing these things right now, the universal teachings call something forward, the main question, how are we supposed to live our life? How can we live our life? How can we hold each other? How can we stop? Feel the rhythm, know how to respond, how to dance, knowing we don't know how long we have to live. So those are my ramblings. And we can just sit, of course, like the Buddha. We can shimmer and gleam. And we can hold each other. I don't ask for words, I don't ask for non-words, but yeah, words help sometimes. Hey, Mary Beth.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
I don't know what I'm going to say. I was just very moved though by the poem. Um,
You're the right color.
just the picture of the busker and the metaphor of it all. Um, you know, my mother will be 101 in October and she's still living by herself. And last night I got a call and she said, no, it was in the afternoon. She said, I think I'm depressed. I said, you do? Why do you think you're depressed? And we kind of talked through it. And she said, I don't know, but could you come over? And I said, and I had just made a commitment to, stop jumping when my mother needs something. Right. Because it was beginning to feel like I needed some better boundaries, but this one felt really different. Mm-hmm. And so I went over there and I sat down and, she said, what does depression feel like? And I said, well, why don't you tell me what you're feeling? A 60-year-old woman talking to a 101-year-old woman almost. And she said, well, I don't know. Bottom line is she just really said, I think I'm just having a bad day. I can't use my computer anymore. I can't figure it out. She gets lost trying to use the iPad. She gets lost trying to use the phone. And I've taken virtually everything I can off because she keeps getting hacked. But to think of her, as you were saying at the end, where we don't have to know what something is to hold it, is very comforting to me.
Yeah. It's oddly comforting, isn't it?
Yeah. And I didn't need to know what her depression was yesterday. I could feel it and I could see it. And I didn't have to understand it to hold it, but I could hold it. And I
Yeah.
could, and I think that's what my practice has given me. Over the past couple of weeks, it seems like I've been talking to different people about different topics, and it all comes back to my meditation practice. And I say, I don't think I can be doing whatever it is I'm talking about, XYZ, unless I'd spent this past 15 years regulating my nervous system by sitting on a cushion and not trying to do anything.
Mhm.
So
As long as you can
that's
tolerate
what's
it.
given me the capacity, I think, to hold. What'd you say?
As long as you can tolerate it.
As long as I can tolerate
And it
it.
gives you a capacity. I think that's important. It's not like you learn something new or you get some new skill, but by following the forms and being with each other, we end up being shaped differently.
Yes, and being able to know what something, not to have to know what something is, to hold it.
That's right. And that question earlier in the poem, it says, we think it's when someone's dying, like, where do they go? I said, that's not the question.
Yeah, that's not the question. It's an interesting thought, but it's how to hold it in the moment.
That's right. How to listen. Oh, there's a rhythm coming from this person, and I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to stop and put some things down and see what happens.
Yeah.
And you don't
And
have to
I did
wonder why.
that.
You don't
I
have to
don't
wonder
know
why.
why. But I did decide that if she calls again tonight and says she's depressed and can you come over, that I'll go again tonight, and just keep meeting it moment by moment before I make a decision of a boundary again, because
Hmm.
it just felt important. So that's
Yeah,
all.
to be able to hold somebody's hand when they say, "Oh, I'm depressed," and you go, "Oh, I know."
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the holding. I know.
Yeah. She just says, I never thought I'd be on this world this long. Who thought? So I
Yeah.
understand it. I understand
Hmm.
when you are still able to be alive, but you can't do a lot. I
Yeah,
get it why she's depressed.
the same koan, which she's touching on, we heard in some of you have seen because I posted it, a documentary about Lewy body dementia with these two couples, and it's called Facing the Wind. And anyway, there's a statement of one of the women who cares for her husband, and she said, we're told we have 3 to 8 years. And then she says, what are we supposed to do in the meantime?
Mm.
It's the waiting.
Hmm.
Give me, give me,
Mm.
give me some love. It's the waiting.
Yeah, I needed to hear that. Yes. And I have it to give.
Yeah, don't have to solve anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love you, Flint.
Love you too. Thanks for your generosity to me and Aaron.
You're welcome.
Mhm. Sophie?
There's something you haven't mentioned, and for me, maybe it has to do with holding the pain, feeling the pain.
Being able to hold it is a lot more challenging than trying to fix it, to really hold it. And to feel everything we feel as we hold. Some days grief, some days joy, some days just quiet steadiness. Other days, a little irritated, frustrated, but not let that throw us off. Or if it does, come back.
I think we're all holding you, Naren.
Thank you. I was just thinking how long we've held each other, and so many others, you know. Thank you. It's a great gift. Kathy.
Hi, Flint. So good to see you. I'm sending my love. What really struck me about the koan, and you used the word afterwards, was the kind of quiet earnestness of the non-Buddha. He showed up earnestly, without even a question. No demands, just earnestly showing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you think no words, no not, just meet me.
Right? And I can feel it. It's so palpable.
Absolutely.
It's so incredibly palpable. And Buddha responded in turn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I can kind of feel this energy between them. It's a very beautiful thing.
It is. It didn't require just the shadow, just the presence, just the meeting.
And the meeting of the non-Buddhist of that inmost request.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is profound.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Oh, this is how to live.
Right.
It's sort of like in the movie, oh, this is why God made the world.
Well, even before that, to go in the first place, to feel the yearning,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
to feel the yearning, and to pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very beautiful thing. And as I was thinking about it and looking at the screen, and I like to keep it on gallery view because
Mm-hmm.
I just love knowing that, you know, we're all together and all one being, intra-connected.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that earnestness is here right now in this moment with every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, without having to even understand what it's calling for, but to honor it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a gift.
Mm-hmm. As you are.
Oh, thank you very much. You said something, I don't know if I can find it. Oh, I know, because you know, I'm in the paramita class and we're talking about receiving and giving, and something you said made me reframe the giving as offering.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's something more interrelational about offering than there is about giving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I'm going to see how that fits, you know?
Well, you think I give something,
Right. And it's
and
done.
seeing of it. But the offering is where we meet that no giver, no receiver, no gift.
Exactly. Right. Right. Yeah. And still the language we talk about that paramita with is giving.
Of course, and it's very useful.
It's interesting. Yeah.
But we keep playing with it around the edges to let it open up for us,
Mm-hmm.
become more than just the word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you for opening up with just, you know,
Yeah.
with that Well, I guess I've been thinking about offering because we talk about at Open Door, some of us give Dharma talks, even though we're not teachers, and we don't say we're giving Dharma talks, we say we're making an offering.
Yeah, you're offering the Dharma.
So, yeah. So, well, so I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody else for their earnestness. For Catherine Coleman once did a offering, which was very simple. She said, I'll sit for you, will you sit for me?
Yeah.
And
Basically.
yeah, and so that's what it feels like for me today, being here with everyone, with you and with everyone else. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, we don't even have to know, just to have this.
Hi, Erin, I love you.
Love you too. It's just the holding.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
So let's invoke our reminder of the 4 practice principles, which expresses so much of what we've been, what comes out of the collage today, caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream, each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way, caught in the self-centered dream. I just went blank. Only suffering, holding the self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Flint. Thanks, everybody. Just want to take a quick moment to remind everybody that Appamada's programs, facilities, teachers are all supported through your generosity. And that can happen by going to appamada.org/contribute for the teacher, for the Sangha, however it works for you. And if you'd like to hang on for a little bit longer, we still have another 30 minutes. Just pop yourself in gallery view and stay right here. Thank you all.